In 4 days, the most powerful crime boss in America will be dead. And almost nobody will know it happened. October 15, 1976, 2:54 a.m. An old man in Massapequa, Long Island, reaches for the phone. He doesn't call a doctor, he calls his nephew. "Tommy," he rasps in Sicilian, "it's time." The Invisible King, Carlo Gambino and the Art of Power. October 1976, the end of an era. By 3:17 a.m., Thomas Gambino stands in his uncle's bedroom, watching the most feared man in New York die in pajamas. No drama, no final words of wisdom, just an old man, 74 years old, suffocating in his sleep while his wife of 47 years holds his hand. Carlo Gambino dies the way he lived, quietly. 4 days later, more than 1,000 people will line the streets outside Immaculate Conception Church in Brooklyn. Federal agents will photograph every face. The FBI will count 22 limousines. But here's what they won't see: the empire he built, the system he perfected, the way he turned organized crime from a street-level racket into a corporate structure that controlled New York City like a shadow government. The story they think they know is The Godfather, the story of a wise, patient Don who rules through intelligence. It's not real, they assume. It's fiction, Hollywood mythology. They're wrong. Because Carlo Gambino actually did it. He actually ruled New York through intelligence rather than violence, through patience rather than brutality, through understanding that real power doesn't announce itself, it just is. This is the story of a man who never spent a single day in prison, who never got indicted under RICO, who ran the most powerful crime family in America and died a free man in his own bed surrounded by family. This is the story of how invisibility became the ultimate power. Part 1. The Stowaway. Palermo, Sicily, 1921. To understand how Carlo Gambino became the boss of bosses, you have to go back to 1921, to Palermo, Sicily, to a 20-year-old kid who's already killed at least 2 men. When Carlo boards the SS Vincenzo Florio bound for Norfolk, Virginia, he's not booking passage. He's hiding in passage, stowing away in the coal room. And you don't stow away from Sicily in 1921 unless staying in Sicily is worse than potentially dying in a coal bunker for 3 weeks. He arrives in America on December 23, 1921, Christmas in the land of opportunity. But Gambino doesn't go through Ellis Island, doesn't register. He slips into Brooklyn like smoke under a door and vanishes into the Sicilian community in Sheepshead Bay. For the next 8 years, as far as the United States government is concerned, Carlo Gambino doesn't exist. This is his first lesson in power. Invisibility is better than invincibility. While other gangsters are making headlines, Lucky Luciano with his tailored suits, Al Capone with his soup kitchens, Dutch Schultz with his temper, Gambino is making money. Working for his cousins, the Castellanos, running alcohol during Prohibition. Quiet, efficient, never the loudest voice in the room. There's a story from 1929, a meeting in a Brooklyn social club, a dispute over territory. One of the young hotshots is shouting, threatening to go to war. Carlo says 7 words. Or we could split it and make more. They split it. This is the Gambino method. In 1931, the Castellamarese War tears the Italian underworld apart. Bodies stacking up from Manhattan to Brooklyn. Carlo Gambino picks a side, the winners. When Lucky Luciano and Meyer Lansky orchestrate the murders of the old bosses, Gambino is part of the murder crew. He's there when they put 5 bullets in Salvatore Maranzano. But here's the crucial detail. When the newspapers report Maranzano's death, when the cops round up suspects, when the feds start asking questions, Carlo Gambino's name never appears. Not once. 20 men were in that office building. 19 of them can be identified. The 20th is a ghost. Under the new commission system, Luciano's brilliant innovation turning the 5 families into a board of directors, Carlo becomes a capo in what's now called the Mangano family. He runs operations in Brooklyn, gambling mostly, loan sharking, the waterfront, nothing flashy. For 26 years, Gambino is middle management. His boss, Vincent Mangano, thinks Carlo is loyal, dependable, not ambitious. Mangano is wrong about that last part. Part 2. The Invisible Rise. April 19, 1951. The Disappearance. Vincent Mangano disappears. His brother Philip is found shot to death in a marsh near Sheepshead Bay. Vincent's body never turns up. Albert Anastasia, the family's underboss, the man they call the Lord High Executioner of Murder, Inc., takes over the family. Anastasia claims Vincent went to Florida and never came back. The commission knows it's bullshit. But Anastasia is dangerous and nobody wants that war. Except the FBI has tapes, surveillance from years later. On those tapes, Carlo Gambino mentions something interesting. Vincent thought I was just the guy who ran the docks. He didn't see Albert until it was too late. And he didn't see me at all. Carlo wasn't just loyal to Anastasia. He was the strategist, the planner, the one who made sure Vincent disappeared so completely that even today, 73 years later, nobody knows where the body is. This is the second lesson. Help dangerous men become bosses, then wait for them to make mistakes. Leave a like if you're fascinated by the real mafia stories that are stranger than fiction. Subscribe to discover how power works behind the scenes. October 25, 1957, 10:19 a.m. Albert Anastasia is getting a shave at the Park Sheraton Hotel in Manhattan. The barbershop has leather chairs, hot towels, the smell of bay rum and talc. Anastasia is in chair number 4, face covered in shaving cream. His bodyguard has stepped outside for a cigarette. This isn't an accident. At 10:20, 2 men in fedoras and scarves walk in. The barber sees the guns, drops his razor. The shooters fire 10 times. Anastasia crashes through the glass and collapses, blood mixing with shaving cream. By 10:22, Albert Anastasia, the most feared killer in New York, is dead in a pile of glass and hair clippings. The shooters walk out, drop the guns in a trash can, get into a waiting car. The driver is never identified. But 3 weeks later, Carlo Gambino is officially recognized as the new boss. The FBI later learns from an informant that Carlo told Anastasia to get rid of his bodyguard, told him it looked weak. Anastasia died because he thought looking tough was the same as being safe. Carlo understood the difference. Part 3. The Machine. The Art of Insulation. By 1959, Carlo Gambino controls the single largest crime family in America. 750 made men, thousands of associates, every union on the Brooklyn waterfront, construction contracts across the city, the garment district, JFK airport cargo theft pulling in tens of millions a year. And he runs it from a modest house in Brooklyn, driving a 5-year-old Chevy, never eating at restaurants fancier than the local Italian spot. The FBI knows he's powerful, but they can't prove it because Carlo doesn't give speeches, doesn't throw parties, doesn't flash money. He just runs New York. The FBI finally gets authorization to bug mob locations. They plant devices in social clubs, restaurants, cars. They're convinced they'll catch Carlo giving orders, planning hits, moving money. They catch him talking about his grandchildren. There's a recording from October 1963. Carlo meets with his underboss Della Croce at a club in Brooklyn. The FBI has 6 microphones in the room, but the conversation is about the Yankees, families, the weather. 20 minutes of nothing. The FBI agents listening think the bug is broken. It's not. Carlo knows it's there. And he's spent 20 minutes teaching Della Croce and anyone listening that this is how you operate. Say nothing that matters where anyone can hear. But he's running the biggest criminal enterprise in America. So where's he giving orders? Walks. Carlo conducts business while walking around the block. In parks, along the waterfront, moving constantly. No electronics, no written records. When a gambling operation needs to start, he doesn't call the guy who runs it. He tells his underboss. His underboss tells a capo. The capo tells a soldier. The soldier tells an associate. The associate opens the gambling operation. 5 layers of separation. If the operation gets raided, the associate gets arrested, maybe the soldier, never Carlo. When a problem needs to be solved, Carlo doesn't say, "Kill him." He says, "This situation is making me uncomfortable." Someone else interprets, someone else plans, someone else pulls the trigger. The FBI finally gets an informant inside the Gambino family. For 6 months, this soldier wears a wire, records conversations. Dozens of crimes, hundreds of hours of tape. Carlo Gambino is mentioned 47 times. Not once does he personally commit a crime. Not once does he give a direct order. His name comes up, "Carlo wants this. Check with Carlo. We need Carlo's approval." But always in the third person. Always from people talking about him, never to him. When the FBI makes arrests, 17 people go to prison. Carlo isn't charged. The informant later tells his FBI handler something illuminating. "I was in the family for 8 years. I met Carlo twice, both times at funerals. He shook my hand, asked about my mother, walked away. That's it. That's my entire relationship with the boss of bosses." This is the perfection of insulation. You're so quiet, so invisible, so reasonable that even the people you're extorting think you're doing them a favor. Part 4. The Philosophy. The Heroin Question. The 1970s. New York is falling apart. The city is broke. Crime is everywhere. Drugs are flooding in from Sicily, from France, from Southeast Asia. The other families are getting rich on heroin, the Lucchese's, the Bonanos, even parts of Carlo's own family, crews running drugs through Harlem, through Bed-Stuy, through the South Bronx. Carlo bans it, not publicly, not dramatically, but he makes it clear. Gambino family operations stay away from hard drugs. Not because he's moral. Carlo killed his boss, remember? Probably dozens of people over 5 decades. He's not squeamish. He bans drugs because he's practical. "The money's good for 5 years, he tells Della Croce. Then the feds make it their priority and everyone goes to prison for 20. It's bad math. He's right. By 1980, most of the old guard bosses who got into heroin are dead or in federal prison. The Bonanno family is under a RICO indictment. The Lucchese family is in chaos. The Gambino family? Still running construction, still controlling the waterfront, still taking their cut from every garment factory, every trucking company, every union contract. Legal adjacent, hard to prosecute, sustainable. There's a story, probably apocryphal but too perfect not to mention, that Carlo goes to see The Godfather at a theater in Brooklyn. His grandson later claims Carlo watched the whole thing, said nothing, then on the way out muttered, "He makes it look harder than it is." Because here's the truth. The movie shows you the strategy, the planning, the consequences. What it doesn't show you is the boring part, the part where power isn't dramatic. It's 1,000 small decisions. It's knowing when to approve a loan and when to refuse it. This is the real story of organized crime, not the Hollywood version. Share this with someone who loves true crime, and follow for more stories about the men who actually controlled America. Part 5. The Legacy, the Funeral, and After. 4 days after Carlo's death, at the funeral outside Immaculate Conception Church in Brooklyn, the FBI photographs everyone. They identify soldiers, capos, bosses from other families. They count limousines. They note who sits where. They're documenting the end of an era. There are about 40 people, men in expensive suits, standing at the back that they can't identify, not connected to organized crime, not relatives, legitimate businessmen, union officials, construction executives, garment district managers, people who'd been paying tribute to Carlo for decades. They probably never knew the man they were paying was a murderer, a racketeer, a crime boss. The bosses who replace Carlo, Paul Castellano, John Gotti, Sammy Gravano, they don't understand the philosophy. They think power is about being seen, about respect, about fear. Paul Castellano builds a mansion on Staten Island that looks like the White House. John Gotti wears $1,000 suits and holds court at the Ravenite Social Club, where the FBI has cameras pointed directly at the door. They violate the fundamental rule: invisibility is better than invincibility. By 2000, the Gambino family that Carlo built is decimated. RICO prosecutions, cooperating witnesses, wiretaps catching bosses giving direct orders because they never learned to just shut up and take a walk. Carlo would have been disgusted. The FBI closed the case file in 1976, but they opened a new one 3 weeks later, trying to understand how the organization could function so smoothly after the boss died. They never figured it out, because they were looking for a person to replace Carlo. What they should have been looking for was the system. Carlo didn't just run a crime family. He built a machine that could run itself. The FBI's file on him is 11,000 pages of surveillance, wiretaps, informant reports, and theories. At the end, there's a note from the lead investigator. Subject successfully avoided prosecution despite 5 decades of suspected criminal activity. Died of natural causes. Case closed. That's it. That's the epitaph. The man who controlled billions of dollars in illegal operations, the government's final word is case closed. Want to understand the real history of organized crime? The decisions that shaped America? Read more stories about the invisible kings who ruled the underworld. Follow for deeper dives into the men behind the myth.